Good morning and welcome to the VUU. Hope that for those of you who were up late last night watching the debate, hope you drank lots of water. I was watching my Facebook feed and I believe there was a little bit of alcohol consumption going on with the discussion last night. I am Reverend Nasty Woman and I am here in Austin, Texas. And let me let everyone else introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael Tino. I'm here in Peekskill, New York. It's good to be back with you all this week. I'm filling in for Meg Riley while she's on sabbatical.
And hi, I'm Alicia Forde. I live in sunny and brilliant Colorado, and I'm on the VUU at least twice a month. It's good to be here.
And we are very happy to have back with us Carlton and Kenny. And while we're waiting, I believe we're trying to get Lena Gardner on as well. Just tell me a little bit, everyone, about what's going on in your area.
Sure. Well, hey, y'all. I'm Kenny Wiley, and I usually live in Denver, but I'm currently in the UUA headquarters in Boston. Here for a UU World Week. I'm one of our UU
so you
Frisbee last night instead of, so very happy about that decision. Did I cut out? Uh-oh.
Yeah, a little bit of tech problems, but it's hard to tell whose it's happening on. And Carlton, where are you this week?
I may need to relocate, but.
At the moment, I'm in Holly Springs, Mississippi, my hometown. It's great to be back on the VUU. Good to see everyone today. We had a little rain shower today, which has been kind of rare. I don't know about other parts of the country, but we've been kind of in a bit of a drought here in the Southeast. So that's most welcome today. And yeah, the debates about that. Count myself as a friend of all the nasty women out there, yeah.
And Lena, where are you today?
I am at home in Minneapolis.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad that you could all join us. We're always happy to have you on, but especially this week. And I just want to jump into it because I hear there was some big news. Anyone want to share it with us?
I guess if you're speaking of the recent board meeting of the UUA, then I guess I would probably be as likely a candidate to do that as any, being that I was in the room as the board was meeting at Shelter Rock, the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock. Leslie Mack and I were invited to speak on behalf of BLUU at the fall meeting of our UUA board. And we actually did a presentation there with regards to what we've done over the past 14 months as the organizing collective of Black Lives of UU, and invited the board into a deeper partnership with us. Of course, we've been working with the UUA board and the UUA administration all throughout the past 14 months. But looking at a way to make that relationship even more potent and even more powerful, and at the end of our time with them, there was a affirmation by our UUA board of the work of Black Lives of UU, along with an affirmation of the ask that we made of the board, which was for $300,000 to support our work between now and the end of the fiscal year, including our convening, which is coming up in March, and all of our programming around General Assembly of 2017 in New Orleans, as well as a long-term commitment of $5 million towards our work as Black Lives of UU, and to continue organizing Black Unitarian Universalist, other people of color and white allies within our associations for the benefit of all of Unitarian Universalism, but specifically in the context of Black Lives of UU. And it's very exciting and humbling.
And you were there. What was it like in the room? Was this a controversial decision? Was this joyful? What? Tell us, take us there.
Sure. So our presentation, it was a Friday morning. It was a beautiful day out on Long Island. We met at the Beach House, which is the historic part of the complex there at Shelter Rock. there was a prayer that was led by Christina Rivera, who's a board member, before we even went into the meeting. And I understand that they had already had conversations the day before, training for the new board members around anti-racism, anti-oppression, and multiculturalism. So the stage was somewhat set already. The presentation that Leslie and I did had already been vetted by the fellow members of the organizing collective earlier in the week, and there was a feeling that it was strong even at that point. It took us about an hour to make the full presentation to the board, after which there was I'd say about an hour of thoughtful conversation that followed. And I would say that I know many people in that room already, so it wasn't like being in a room full of strangers at all. And at the same time, it's a very sensitive subject, and people have lots of strong feelings about it, going back to the controversies around Black empowerment in the 1960s. And we even spoke a bit of our historical forebears who were courageous in their work in our history, including Martha and Waitstill Sharp and their courageous stand against the Nazis leading up to the Second World War. So looking at all of these courageous folks in our history, and I have to say that the spirit in the room was very, very warm, very collegial. And I had no sense at all that we were working in opposition to one another at all, but trying to come to some shared conclusion about what it is that we wanted to do together, and how we could make that happen. It was very thoughtful, and I would say very spiritual. A number of the board members spoke about their faith and what it meant to be a people of faith, what it meant to actually live out our faith, as we've been talking about for these several months as Black Lives of UU. So no, it was a very peaceful spirit. And I would say even at the end of it, there was the affirmation that happened. One of the board members, Greg Boyd, was very much calling for a beautiful process around it. And I really didn't understand what he meant until the affirmation actually happened. And you know how anytime there's sort of like a Robert's Rule of Order, sort of yes, no, up or down vote, there can be like a little bit of an ick factor after, because 7 people agreed and 2 people were against, or 8 people agreed and 1 person was against. It wasn't like that. It was more like our moderator, Jim Key, who did a wonderful job of moderating, just sort of like surveyed the room and noticed that there was no vocal opposition, and that's how the affirmation was made. So from that standpoint, it was very, very welcome. We went to lunch after that, and after lunch was over with, before Leslie and I had to catch our flights out because she was going to St. Louis for the Revive Love tour. I was going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to co-lead an event there. There was an opportunity for the board to pray with those of us who were with Black Lives of UU, as well as with the Black folks who are serving on the board currently, and with Cheryl M. Walker, who is the president of our Ministers Association. And I should mention Greg Boyd and Dorothy Moore and Alandria Williams are the Black folks who are currently serving on our UUA board and representing so well, and so grateful for their wisdom and insight and their participation in that conversation.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for giving us, kind of allowing us to be in the room.
Yeah,
so,
it was extraordinary.
Can I jump in just
Please.
to add? I think, I obviously wasn't in the room, but I think that it's really important to understand the affirmation of Blackness, and that BLUU is here to support Black UUs, and that this is really an affirmation. I feel it as an affirmation from the UUA that they are willing to step in and support Black UUs through our work in ways that they haven't been able to do before. And I think it's just really important that we don't lose center of the support and nurturance that Black folks in our country are in need of right now, and in particular UUs in really white congregations. And so a lot of our work, as I see going forward, is about that spiritual nourishment, about building and supporting Black youth and continuing the work that we've already started. And so I really understand it as a really important signal that the UUA is listening a little better and finally starting to take serious the spiritual nurturance of Black folks in our congregation, in our denomination.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Kenny, where were you when the news came down on this?
Well, I was in Denver and just like checking my phone every 0.6 seconds for news from Carlton and Leslie, and actually being texted by my UU World colleague Elaine McCardle, who was reporting on the meeting and has subsequently posted a story. But you know, for me, it was so exciting to be a part of the lead up process and helping Carlton and Leslie plan what would be said. And it was just such a collaborative process that, you know, it felt like all of us on Black Lives VUU's core leadership team were a part of it. And then to just trust those two, but also to trust the folks in the room who were on the board, that, you know, I was reminded that though we have a long and complicated history, I really felt confident that something good for Black UUs would come out of that meeting. I didn't know it would be quite this good, but I felt confident in the general outcome. So it was nice to have that faith rewarded.
So what are the next steps?
I'd say that it's going to be an evolving process. We're really wanting to take our time, I would say, and be in conversation amongst ourselves, definitely with, you know, with the many Black Unitarian Universalists that there are across the country, as well as in conversation with other folks and other people who also have an investment in this as well. Certainly, we have ongoing conversations to be had with the UUA board as we, you know, fine tune and figure out what's next. So it's a bit up in the air, but we're going to be working on that, figuring out like what that process going forward. The main thing that we're focusing on now, I would say, as Black Lives VUU Organizing Collective, is the convening that's coming up in March. Which is why we're adjusting what we're going to be offering during General Assembly this year. We're very, very much deeply involved in General Assembly this year. And for this coming year, we're focusing more on the convening that's coming up in March, specifically for Black Unitarian Universalist and friends and other Black friends coming up in March 9th through the 12th. So that's where a lot of our emphasis is going to go. And it's really the case that, you know, until we have some of those conversations with other Black Unitarian Universalists, with Black ministers, religious educators, other Black professionals, that we'll begin to have an emerging sense of how we want to move forward.
And
Kenny,
sorry,
Kenny and Lena might want to add something to that as well, for sure.
Yeah, I just want to be really clear that it is up to Black UUs what we do with the money. I think that one of our center goals is that we're really clear that we don't want it to be just like the six of us making a decision on behalf of the people without bringing them into a process of true and authentic you know, building together of what we want to do with this money. I think that there has been interesting turn of events since this announcement has come up, a hyper focus on this money. And I think it is a historical thing and it is a monumental thing. And I think it's just really important to know that we are going to decide as Black UUs how to use this money to you know, help us build our supports that we haven't had for years and years and years. And the other thing I really just want to point to is that that this is just a beginning. There's no way like a one-time installment of like $5 million, whether it's in an endowment form or some other form, is going to be the end-all be-all of the work we have to do as Black UUs or the work we have to do together as an entire denomination. There's still a profound amount of work that's going to be necessary in order to bring any sort of modicum of healing or moving forward together as a faith. And I just feel like it's really important that we hold both of these things together and we don't pretend like this is an ending, and we don't pretend like we as Black UUs aren't fully capable of deciding and doing it together in a truly democratic way of how we want to use this, this initial sort of, step towards a sense of healing and moving forward together.
And Alicia, did you have something?
I was wondering if just following up on something Carlton said, and now Lena, if there's any sense of what a process would look like to bring more Black UUs specifically into the conversation around how you use the funding and how you move forward.
Yeah, I think this was our whole, even before this money happened, we were planning the convening in March in New Orleans. And we've been putting out lots of things about that. And we've been waiting for more details about how to actually bring people there, because that takes financial support, right? Like a lot of folks don't have the money to travel and, get a hotel and all of that stuff. So what we're really, excuse me, so the plans for that convening have really not shifted, right? Like the plans all along have been to plug in more Black UUs, to really build the structure of BLUU together, to build the vision together, to build our, sense of what we want it to be together. Because we're clear that actually we've had conversations around like the six of us, and there are 6 different visions, right? And so we're really clear that we don't want to be the only voices in the room. And we're also really clear that we want to be doing it with people together. And I think that's where, some of the skills of the organizers on the team come into play, right? Like, Alandria, years and years and years of experience, Leslie, years and years of experience, myself experience in bringing people into the process, in really making sure that we are doing all that we can to hear as many voices as possible in real and significant and substantial ways. And so I think that, we don't have all of the details hashed yet, because this news is less than a week old. But, as far as, and we actually have a planning retreat coming up as part of, after the Revive Love New Orleans stop, to really flesh out those details. So, we've been in the works. We're really centering a lot of things on the convening, and then we're also going to be working on folks who can't come to the convening, how to wrap them in as well.
And I just have a quick comment. Joanne, you asked, where were you? You were asking Kenny, where were you when this news came? And one of the things I realized is that the rest of our denominational partners are watching what's happening in the UUA. I got the news from a UCC colleague who texted me and said, "Hey, have you seen this?" And so it was quite interesting to know that, the work that you're doing is having an impact on others beyond Unitarian Universalism, other denominations beyond Unitarian Universalism.
Yeah, that's really an exciting thing to be aware of too. And I think it is an opportunity for us as an association and as Black Lives of UU in relationship to the larger UUA to make a really powerful stand. And I've often said, with regards to Unitarian Universalism, if we can't, work out some of these differences and find ways to empower people who've been disempowered for a long time inside of our association, I don't know what hope there is for having that manifested on a community level, on a state level, on a national level. So I think this really sends a very powerful signal. I'd also add too that yes, it's wonderful. We have gifts of what tremendous and fantastic organizers on our team, including Leslie, Lena, and Alandria, and also grateful for the gifts that Kenny is bringing to the team in terms of being a writer. We have people who are involved in the arts on the team. I'm thinking of Taikia and Nur Amin. We have someone who's bringing some, experience around being in the military. That's Royce James, who's also on the team. And I'm glad to be part of the team that represents the ministry of Unitarian Universalism, and glad to see how all of that can work together for the benefit of our task, the task that lies before us.
This to me is as someone who is not a Black Unitarian Universalist, super exciting to just watch our commitment grow as a denomination to supporting Black Lives of Unitarian Universalists. And I think, as I understand it, there was $300,000 committed for this fiscal year,
Yep.
and $5 million promised for the future, but that $5 million, we don't know where that's coming from yet. So I think that there's also a what's next for those of us who are committed to being in solidarity with BLUU, which is to make sure that $5 million appears. Because if we know our Unitarian Universalist history, we know that money has been promised to Black Unitarian Universalists in the past. So we need to, those of us who are not Black Unitarian Universalists need to make sure that that money that money is real, and that money appears. And I think it's worth saying.
Yes, absolutely. I cannot agree more about the work of that. And I also think it's really important too that we don't try to take this money from other programs and other things that are already in place that are supporting Black and Brown UUs, because that's also something we've seen happen in the past, right? So I can't underscore the importance enough of really leaning into that work on the part of non-Black UUs to make that happen. And you know, the other thing I really want to caution us against is really in situations like this, there's a tendency to really start to shine a light on the actions of, for instance, like the board making this monumental decision, and sort of decenter Blackness and decenter the real problems that we're facing. And I am already starting to see that happen with some folks who are even like really close with me. And I think that part of the work, in addition to making sure like this money shows up and it isn't taken from other resources supporting Black and Brown UUs, is also to affirm that this is a good thing, but also not to blow it out of proportion, as UUs are, you know, known to do, and say, you know, toot our own horn really, really loudly, right? And say, like, look at all of this wonderful things. And I think that is going to be hard for people. I've seen that happen here. And the piece about like, the other denominations, you know, taking notice is also, you know, important. And for me, it's like, how do we keep leaning further into this? How do we keep going? Because, you know, in the end, my analysis is like, this money is also blood money, right? Like all of the wealth that the UUA has came off the back of slaves and of, you know, Indigenous people. And so there is a certain part of my heart that certainly we will be able to do really amazing things with this money, and that can't be, you know, ignored or belittled in any way. And how do we hold both the truths at the same time, that this is complex? How do we continue to center Blackness and the Black work, the work for Black liberation, as it's also tied to other communities? You know, the saying always goes, when Black folks get free, we all get free. I believe that 100%. So, you know, though, I just really think it's important that we, you know, keep our focus and lean into the work, and just be real careful not to congratulate ourselves too much, because this to me is a really good beginning, and it's just a beginning.
Did the board put any sort of requirement in, you know, outcomes, annual reports? You know, once you start working with bureaucracy, there's things that they'll often put in. Did they do any of that?
You know, I think the ask was very clear that this time around we want to learn from the past, and that, you know, BLUU should have full autonomy over this money. You know, I think it was Alandria Williams that had a really good quote of when she said, self-determined people, no one controls the money of self-determined people. So if we are really going to start viewing Black folks as self-determined people who are fully and wholly capable of making decisions about themselves, their lives, and their communities, then, you know, there will be no constraints, no you know, restrictions, or, you know, things like that we've seen in the past. That's at least my understanding. I don't know if other people have different understanding, but
Well, I was in the room when the conversation happened around around what the determination would be, and I can underscore what Lena was just saying. That there was a question of how the money would be allocated, what was going to be the opportunity to stay in communication, and basically where it landed is that yeah, we're going to be in ongoing communication with our UUA board and with the UUA administration as we have been all throughout the past 14 months that the Black Lives of UU organizing collective has been in existence, and we're going to figure that out, what that's going to look like. But I'd say the spirit of it is that there's not going to be any way that we're going to be obligated, is what I want to say, to produce certain results. That it really is an act of trust and an act of faith on the part of our UUA board in Black Lives of UU, and it's done in a covenantal way rather than a management by objectives way.
So you mentioned the collective, which will be meeting in March. Who all are y'all inviting to that?
That's the convening that's happening in March 9 to 12, and it's extended to Black Unitarian Universalist. We are looking we'll see how many people actually respond to it. We know that there's going to be the Finding Our Way Home event that's going to be happening the following weekend. And so we're reaching out to lay people, to religious professionals, to ministers, to youth, to young adults, to all Black Unitarian Universalists, and hoping to have just a very diverse representation. Kenny and Lena, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I think one thing that's exciting to me is that we can have there's such a wide array of Black UU experiences. And, what I think we're hoping, I know I'm hoping, is that, we have those at the convening. That, my dad is a longtime Black Unitarian Universalist, and I'd love for him to come. I don't know that he will, but, he has a very different, experience than I do, and a lot of different viewpoints. And, there's just a lot of folks who are one of 3, one of 5, one of 7. And, it's like, it feels like every week we hear from, and by that I mean like one of 7 Black UUs in their congregation. And every week we hear from a few more people who are like, wait, this is a thing. And so, there's the Alicias and the Carltons who are super connected and work for our association. And then there's folks who just think they're really by themselves. And so to me, one thing that's exciting about the convening is that really a lot of people can participate. And I hope folks hear this, that, if you have relationships with Black Unitarian Universalists, maybe not a good idea to, like, a Black person walks in your church and like, did you know there's this thing? But if you have relationships with Black folks who are not super connected on the regional or national level, let them know about this. And they may be like, that sounds like a horrible thing and that's unfortunate, but they may be like super jazzed. And then to help folks, find a way to get there. Because I just, like, to me, I see a gathering of folks of people that, like, we have known for years, and then other people that we've never seen before. And that would be really exciting to me, because then it's truly, like Lena said earlier, it's truly this gathering of Black people determining what it is that we as Black UUs need and want and desire most. And that it's a big collective of people of making those decisions.
Is there information out there yet, or information for, I'm just thinking in our congregations, something where we can go to and say, here's some information about it, you can start making the plans, we're going to raise money, etc.
We have a link on our webpage, blacklivesofuu.com, for the convening. We are still working out the plans and the details for the convening itself. In fact, the organizing collective is going to be meeting in New Orleans next week to begin to hash out some of those plans and some of the logistics around it. So there's a lot to be done. We've been so focused up to this point on our meeting and conversation with the board, and also with the Revive Love tour that's underway now, and Lena's been very much a part of. So our next, so we've got some work to do on that. And what I'm saying to people, if they want to support the work that we're doing now, what they can begin to do is to plan and anticipate supporting Black Unitarian Universalists and getting to the convening in March. We're doing a rough estimate now that it's probably going to be about $1,500 to bring each Black Unitarian Universalist to New Orleans for the convening. So I'd say that for congregations that have Black people within them, Black people in their extended community that they're interested in having present for the convening, as well as congregations that don't have any Black people in them at all, that doesn't prevent them from also participating and sort of supporting the work that we're doing in terms of getting Black folks to New Orleans March 9 to 12. The other thing that I think is going to be very helpful for people to do in the meantime is to support the work that we're doing around the Revive Love tour. And Lena, I know you've set up a opportunity for people to donate to that in the short term. Could you share a bit about that?
Well, before that, I just want to, I put in the link the two things. One is our website with the direct link, and hopefully, you know, the tech people can share that out with folks. The first link is information about the convening. The second link is to sign up for our mailing list. It's primarily will be the way that we organize the convening and get all of that information out forthcoming. Again, as I said, we were waiting until we had funding and support to be able to get all those details, so those will all come. And the other thing I want to just like circle back to is to really make sure that we as UUs understand that this is a first step towards reconciliation, that this money and support was actually promised years and years and years ago, and then it was rescinded. And so I feel like sometimes, you know, for me, I want to see us talking about that. I want to see us shifting into talking about this is a first step in reconciliation. This is a first step in atonement, that this is something that was promised to Black UUs, and then that covenant was broken in a really painful way. And so really, how do we start to see this as a coming back to covenant together as a first step towards that as a faith community? And to that end, I will find the Third Wave Fund. There's a Third Wave crowdsourcing site where folks can give to the Revive Love Tour. We have one more stop in New Orleans, and that will be next week. And folks can give. We still need about $8,000 to be able to make it all happen. And part of that was because we actually have been inundated with requests for the Revive Love stop, for the music, for the organizing, for the connection. And, you know, we are really working to meet that need and to help that happen, so.
And can you explain for our viewers a little bit about the Revive Love Tour?
Sure. So the Revive Love Tour was actually really born out of the minds of Caitlin Breedlove, who is our Standing on the Side of Love campaign director, and also Reverend Osagyefo Sekou. And both of those folks have been in movement for a long time. They have a historical context and an intellectual context for what's happening in this movement moment. And they are really seeing that folks all over the country are in need of both political and spiritual sustenance. So we kind of came together and thought about, so what does that look like? What does that mean? The music that Sekou and J. Marie Hill do, the band is called Reverend Sekou and the Holy Ghost. And the music that they do is all centered in movement. They met on the streets of Ferguson. Their relationship as musical artists and partners and creators and dreamers was really forged in the heat of this, of the Ferguson uprising. And so they have made this music that is just really speaks to any one of us who've been out on the front lines, who've faced the police, who have been tear gassed, or and even folks who haven't, but who are just feeling the emotional sort of reverberations that are happening around the country and have been bearing the brunt of that emotional weight are tired and worn down. So this music really, really lifts people up. And it's really powerful, really amazing music. So we come with the offering of a concert, and then we also come with the offering of some organizing tools and materials from Standing on the Side of Love. So I've been working, with Nora Rassman and Caitlin Breedlove, and we have a chapbook. And apparently that's a new name for like a workbook, but it's really more of like this journal type thing that we bring, and folks have a chance to reflect and just connect. And we really tailor what we're doing to the specific sites. So if people, of course, like Caitlin with 20 years of experience, we can do sort of trainings around different things in organizing, but, it's really not our place to be coming in as outsiders and saying like, this is how you do things, but rather it's more of an offering of folks like, this is what we know, what do you know, and how can we build together, and how can we nourish each other together. So that's really what the tour is. And as folks have been seeing it going around the country and hearing about it, and hearing other people's experiences, like I said, a lot of folks have said, and our plan all along was to do a spring tour as well. And so we're hopeful that we'll still be able to do that. And we've been getting a lot of requests from places, from Detroit, from all over the country, to be able to come in and do this in the spring and other places. So hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Wow. It sounds like y'all from the outside, it sounds like there is so much going on, and like y'all need way more hours in the day than exists. So you have this tour going on, the convening, of course, real life, interfering. Of course, real life is at the heart of this, I would assume. And you're also planning for GA, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And we did have like quite, as I mentioned before, we did have quite a major involvement in General Assembly. This past year, we had a 4-part track that took up several program hours at General Assembly. We had the worship service, our healing space, and we're just pretty much all over the place throughout General Assembly. And I think this year that we're trying to just sort of like bring the scope of it down just like a little bit. What we're looking to do at this coming General Assembly is to also have a worship service similar to the one that was the closing service at this past General Assembly, as well as doing another track on anti-Blackness, which is was one of the features of this past General Assembly as well. So all of that is still in process. I think so much of our emphasis at this General Assembly is going to be on maximizing the use of the healing space that we had last year. And for those who might not be familiar with that concept, it's providing a space that is explicitly Black space for folks to gather, relate, laugh together, cry together, just be in conversation together over the course of General Assembly. That's away from the overwhelming whiteness that General Assembly embodies in the way that it does. So I think that, yeah, we'll have involvement at General Assembly, but so much of our focus for the next several months is going to be all on the convening, very much on the convening. And Kenny, Lena, did you all have things to add?
No, I don't have anything to add, except for that you can follow us on Twitter. And I think I'm trying to get our handle, the Black Lives UU, and stay up to date with all of the happenings, because yes, it is a lot.
Yeah, and one of my hopes for the coming year is to figure out ways to do some ministry with children and youth, Black Lives UU, children and youth. And that's something that, as a director of religious education now, is a real passion of mine. So I know that I'll be advocating that we incorporate that in even more. But already we have, there's a couple Black teens I'm thinking of who have already gotten a little bit involved in what we're doing. So as we go forward, because there's a lot of folks who've been transracially adopted or have a variety of stories. And we know that the Black UU experience is wide, and so we're going to be constantly looking at ways to speak to those realities and to those truths.
Well, and you grew up in a UU church, right? So you have some experience with
a little bit, yeah. Being from, to go from like the assumption that my family did Kwanzaa to, and could explain it to the whole church. Being able to speak about my frustrations from the pulpit as a teenager and as a young adult, that I would hope, that there were a lot of Black adults and mentors who helped that become a reality. And I know that we want to be those people and to help other Black adults be those mentors and to make it so that this faith is a welcoming one for our young Black folks, whatever their circumstance.
A question to follow up on both Kenny and Carlton's thoughts. That healing space that was present and part of the General Assembly experience for 2016 was a very welcome experience for many folks, myself included. And I'm wondering if Black Lives UU has any plans to create spaces like that beyond the General Assembly and beyond the convening.
I would say definitely, and we've actually done a bit of that already and are looking to do it on a more regular basis. We are looking to create those spaces virtually, and have done so just for gatherings of Black Unitarian Universalists, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do more of that. I think we collectively are hoping to be able to do more of that going forward. And then also looking at the possibility of smaller gatherings, whether those are on a regional basis or it's metropolitan areas or however that might break out. I would say too that, yeah, a lot of the work has been concentrated amongst the 6 or 7 of us so far. And going forward, I think one of the big things is figuring out like how do we redistribute the work, because there's just so much work to be done. I'm especially excited about the prospect of working with Black pastoral care providers, Black UU ministers, in terms of creating a network of support for Black Unitarian Universalists who might find themselves isolated in some way or another, or might not be served as fully as they might be through their through the pastoral care situation in their local congregations.
A quick story, if I might, about how that healing space has already sent out ripples of healing into Unitarian Universalism. I was this summer and the summer before the director of SUSI, the Southeast UU Summer Institute, which prides itself on being the 2nd largest gathering of Unitarian Universalists after GA. And we convened this summer in North Carolina. And before SUSI began, a request came to me to create a healing space, specifically people of color only space at SUSI, from people who had been to GA and who had experienced that as being a positive and wonderful thing. And of course, my answer immediately was yes. And we found a lounge that was was like right in the front lobby of the main dorm, so no one had to question where this space was. It wasn't, down some random hallway with twists and turns. And the overwhelming response from people of color at SUSI was just amazement that this space could exist, and people used it all week. People used it all week, and for what, I don't know, because I wasn't in the conversations that happened there. But my friends who are Black who were in that space just said it was really meaningful to them to have that sort of space at SUSI. So so just that didn't come from the 6 of you directly, but it's a ripple that got sent out from the healing space that you created at GA, and I hope those ripples keep going in lots of different ways.
how much did you learn from last GA? You know, are there things where, did y'all have a debriefing afterwards to say, well, this worked, we need to build on this, this didn't work? You know, I guess what I'm asking is, what was the effect of last GA for moving forward?
Yeah, well, I'll say a little bit. For one, I think it helped us realize that both because of our faith values, as that we do things as a community, but also for our own livelihoods, that we can't do it all ourselves. You know, I think Lena and Carlton and Leslie really carried the group in some incredible ways. You know, I was pulling double duty, and so I wasn't as present. But really, I think for all of us on the team, there was just so much, and that the saying in the movement is often "Our Black Lives Matter too," and so, you know, to maybe give ourselves a little more time to be people might be good. But then I think also just that it was great to see what we knew, but it wasn't clear until we were actually there just how much desire there is amongst folks out there, that folks want to go to GA if they can get some help to go. And folks want to experience, you know, explicitly Black space. And then they just want to go see the stuff going on at the general session hall. And they want to feel a part of their larger faith, both with other Black UUs and beyond. And so just to, you know, and that we're not just, you know, data points, that we're real people with real stories, with diverse stories. So all of that is to say, you know, I'm not sure, we're not putting on a 4-part track next year because we're focusing on the convening, as Carlton said, but also to just to get clarity that what we're offering really is a need. That was huge.
Yeah, and absolutely, just want to affirm everything Kenny said, and just you know, add that we, you know, also put together a report for the board around all of our activities and all of the things we did with the support from the collection that was taken up at General Assembly. And you know, we also had a videographer there to capture people's stories. We have 2 really amazing videos, and I'll get the links that really, you know, really talk about and highlight other folks' stories who aren't us around their experiences at General Assembly and what it meant. And time again, you know, we did hear that the healing space was really important to people and really made a difference. And I think, yeah, there were just pieces of also the different tracks that were offered that were also very compelling for folks and really helped folks ground in. So yeah, it was definitely, but definitely want to just echo, you know, what Kenny said, that it was a lot. And I think this year we're going to be, yeah, really, I'm taking to heart my life matters too, right? So.
Yeah, and I'll just briefly add that it really brought home that we're all needed too. That Lena said earlier that we all are very different people with really different strengths. I think it was Lena, maybe it was Carlton, but let's go with it was Lena.
It was Lena.
Okay. She just looking at me like, I said, what? Yeah, so that, you know, Lena and Leslie are such tremendous organizers. And, you know, Carlton can small talk anybody and everybody, and, you know, is
Small
such
talk?
a great,
Okay.
no, just, you know, just like you just love to talk to folks, and you're always connecting and sharing ideas, and you just know so many people, you know. And then I was able to speak from the main stage, and, you know, that helped, you know, with the collection, and Alandria speaking such passion from the stage on the last day of General Assembly about, you know, her story as a Black UU and this larger narrative, to just feel like we were, you know, all able to bring our gifts, that's something that, you know, as we continue to do this work, you know, we really want to help Black UUs really shine and to be able to bring their strengths to help themselves, but also to help other people. And, you know, just seeing how, seeing Carlton at his best and seeing Lena at her best and so forth and so on is just, I think it's an example of how transformative leadership can look for our entire faith, really.
So I'm aware that we have 6 or 7 minutes left in our chat, and I wanted to follow up briefly. Maybe it's a whole hour conversation sometime in the future on something that came up on the VUU last week. Last week we were talking to folks who had participated in the action at Standing Rock in North Dakota in solidarity with the water protectors out there. And one thing that one of our guests who had traveled there with a group of largely Black organizers from North Carolina noted was that she and her colleagues found a lot of anti-Black sentiment within this indigenous-led social justice movement and solidarity. And I wonder what there is, especially with Justice General Assembly coming up, what there is to be said, or what there is to look that all of us need to be on the lookout for in terms of how anti-Blackness in particular comes into multiracial justice work. I wanted to follow up on that because it just seemed like an important thing that was just dropped on us and not really discussed a lot, and it seems like this is a group to discuss that with. And if that's a whole hour conversation next month, then maybe that is.
Yeah, I feel like I wish you would have said that like an hour ago. Yeah, no, that's super important. And yeah, it's like I don't even have words. Like in just hearing you describe that, my mind went in like all different kinds of directions, because I think you know, really there are many facets to anti-Blackness. And one of the most important ones that I think sometimes folks really miss is how Black people are positioned as the antithesis of human, as property still. Like that's still the underlying foundations of anti-Blackness. And then what you have are gradations of that all the way towards whiteness, which is the fully human form. And so you can see there are parallels, or not parallels, but people are placed in proximity on this continuum. And, you know, when we think about that with Indigenous folks, what that means, and I still haven't fully wrapped my mind around it, but being in Minnesota, you know, this is a land of Indigenous folks. There's over 11 tribes that have reservations here. Standing Rock is like a 7-hour drive away. And I have other like folks that I'm in community with that are asking this very same question and talking about how can we be in solidarity with each other as movements, constantly fighting against the erasure of Indigenous people from a lot of discussions and a lot of policymaking things. And I think about that in the context of our UU faith. And we, you know, there's the similar erasures there. So I think absolutely, I'll stop there because we don't have a lot of time, but this is a really important question to be sitting with and discerning about.
I imagine so. Well, we are coming up to the end of the hour. I want to thank our guests for being here. I you know, to throw out something like, okay, so what did we not talk about that we should have this time? You know, a million things. But are there any last thoughts? Any? I have to say, y'all are the ones who are producing so many experiences for others, and I just hope that you are somehow getting fed. You know, that I'm worried. You know, you're doing so much.
Well, it's great to have a platform like this one to be able to be in conversation with one another and with other folks who are also committed to more justice, more equity, more compassion, more freedom inside of our association, and for Black Unitarian Universalists in particular. So I'm grateful for that. And I also want to circle back around and say thank you to Michael for sharing that story about what happened at SUSI, because yes, as Lena said before, as Black folks are freer and we have more experience of the fullness of our humanity, well, that ripples out, as we know, as we've seen over many generations. So glad for that news.
Yeah, and I don't have much in closing other than just that we do need to take care of ourselves, but a lot of it is taking care of one another. And, you know, just the fact that Alicia is on the call too, you know, Alicia has looked out for me many times when I've been in some jams with youth camp stuff, and being one of, you know, the only adult of color on staff or something like that. So a lot of it is really done. A lot of this care is really done in people of color and in Black communities as well, and really in our larger faith community too.
I think my closing thoughts are just, you know, with the topic of this VUU being so much on like this, you know, affirmation of this funding and support, I really want to push folks to get out of the what are you going to do with it, what are your plans, and the concrete. And I really want folks to sit with the theological underpinnings. I want folks to sit with ideas around atonement, around reconciliation, around breaking covenant, around trusting Black leadership in particular and what that means, and around living more deeply into our faith values, because ultimately that is what this that's what this is about, living more deeply into our faith values and bringing our whole selves to the work.
Living more deeply into our faith values. That'll preach, as we say. Thank you very much for that. Thank y'all for being here. And thank you to our viewers. We will see you next week on The VUU.